Thank you everybody for coming. This is going to be a massive weekend of 40-odd lectures. I hope you guys know all your lectures off by heart because there will be no slides this weekend. I wanted to start off and say a couple of words, and I got up early this morning, not really, and I wrote these things down that I wanted to say, but I'm never really very good with a written speech, so I'm going to throw it away and ad-lib it as I go along. Last year, if some of you were here, you remember I started our talk off by talking about vanilla ice cream and how it relates to emergency medicine and the Seth Godin trail of putting a hip against it and pushing hard. Today I wanted to really start off with just mentioning for a minute or two the hero's journey. Joseph Campbell was a very influential and prolific writer. He was a mythologist and also a philosopher. And he wrote a book called The Hero Has a Thousand Faces, and from it he spoke about the hero's journey. Every great story ever written defines the hero's journey. The hero's journey is all about somebody that's going about their business, doing what they do normally, not quite sure of what's going to hit them, and then there's a call to action. There's a call to adventure. There's a call to service. They jump right into whatever this darkness, this abyss is. They want to discover this holy grail for them. And they face this adventure or this journey. They face their demons. They slay their dragons. And then they find this holy grail and bring it back with them and then use it to provide a service or be of service to others. I was reading Joseph Campbell and I wasn't sure about what I was going to be speaking on. And I was at a production, not the Wicked production, but an original production of The Wizard of Oz.
What would you do with your brain?
And as I was sitting there listening to the Scarecrow singing If I Only Had a Brain, and which I was going to play for you today, the only problem with, you know the song I'm talking about? Dun, 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 dun. Of course, all next day in the emergency department I was singing If I Only Had a Brain, which is not the best thing. But I was sitting there watching this, and then I was looking at Dorothy, and Dorothy is the hero that plunges into the abyss, and her holy grail is the love that she has for the people around her. And this power that she needs to find, she realised she has it all along. It's those ruby red slippers that she clicks together and she goes back home and shows the love that she has for all those people around her. And we have tons of, every great story, whether it's Luke Skywalker in Star Wars or Dorothy in The Wizard of Oz or pick it, Rocky, anything, follows the same hero's journey. The hero goes on this journey, and at the same time as going on their journey, they do something which is very special. They follow their bliss. And Joseph Campbell used this particular word, bliss. And bliss isn't about success and cars and houses. And bliss, the word itself, there's a serene kind of contentment in the word. And when you follow your bliss, it becomes effortless. Presentations may stop working, all sorts of things happen, and you go on because you're following your bliss. Now, we've had many great heroes in history. It isn't just stories we're talking about real life people. Mahatma Gandhi, who wanted to be a doctor, became a lawyer. 20 years he practiced for, and then got the call to service and led his country to independence. The Nelson Mandela, who suffered all those years of hardship, sacrifice, who dealt with the demons and led his country. But the important thing about having heroes or watching these movies is that they show us what our potential can be. And if you've ever sat through a movie and felt some lament of some sort, it's because it's triggered in you the fact that you do have some potential that you haven't lived up to yet. But the heroes aren't just the Gandhis and the Mandelas. They're you and me. They're you for giving away a whole weekend to come and learn and be better at what you do, so that your knowledge stands out, so that your knowledge is outstanding. It's the speakers that are going to talk today that have given their time to put together these talks to be of service to you. So I thought that rather than just me prattling on some more, I was sitting there actually, sometimes I say God sort of smacks you on the back of the head rather than taps you on the shoulder. I was sitting there and I was thinking about all of this, and I got an email. And the email was from a very good friend of mine who wanted to just catch up and have some lunch or have a cup of coffee. And I thought about it, and you'll see in a minute why, but it was the most obvious thing for me to invite him along to speak. This is probably one of the most grounded people I've ever met, and he's going to actually open the conference for us today. He is the CEO and founder of TLC for Kids, which is an organisation that assists or looks after or assists sick and dying children. He is this year's Local Hero Australian of the Year, and I've asked him to come by and give us a little bit of his time to open the conference. I wonder if you could put your hands together, please, for Mr. Tim Conolan. Welcome.
Thank you very much, my friend.
Let's see if this works now. Yeah. And right on cue. Well,
lovely. Thank you very much for that amazing introduction, Peter, and the opportunity to come down and speak this morning. I would like to share, I suppose, just a little bit of the story, and that was actually quite moving because I had a similar experience just a few weeks ago at a primary school that were talking about all the heroes, and they actually spoke about Gandhi and Nelson Mandela. And in one of the letters, one of the boys said, "Yeah, we did this report on Nelson. It was amazing, and Gandhi was great." He said, "But you're our local hero, so we want to talk about you." I was on the same page with these other people, so it's funny that you said that. So thank you very much. I suppose the journey that I'd like to share with you this morning, as Peter mentioned, my name's Tim Conolan. Back about 25 years ago, I had a successful clothing company with my brother. It was Australia-wide. We were sponsoring bodybuilding competitions. It was quite successful. But unfortunately, we got involved with a couple of people in the business that cost us everything. So we lost it all. So back when I was about 21 or so, I ended up having a debt of about $500,000, which is quite considerable for that age, and had the option to either sign a piece of paper to declare bankruptcy or work as hard as I could to get out of that debt. And I thought, well, while I can walk and talk and still breathe, I've got to be able to work. So I started the 18 to 19-hour days, which was absolutely ridiculous, but paid off as much of that debt as possible. And during that time, I always kept a positive outlook. And in fact, it was so positive that a couple of our friends, it was with my brother, and a couple of friends said, "Well, why don't you teach people how you're keeping so positive?" So it was, maybe set up some sort of motivational workshop or something, just positive thinking, affirmations, goal setting, whatever it is. But whatever's driving you to keep so positive, let people know about what you're doing and try and share that. So we started doing motivational workshops with high school kids facing the stress of final year exams. We did a lot of work with street kids and unfortunately quite a lot of suicide kids as well through the Salvation Army. And had the absolute honour and privilege of being asked to go to a camp that was working with cancer kids. So during that camp, it was a 4-day camp, and I got to meet a young boy by the name of Francis. And he was only 17 years old, so I was only about 4.5 years older than him. But he had cancer in his lungs, and he was very, very sick. He was actually the sickest person I'd ever met in my life. And just after the camp, he got a phone call from one of his doctors to say that unfortunately his illness has taken a pretty bad turn and he's got about a month to live. And that was the first time I'd ever heard anybody say those words. I've seen them in movies, but it was not reality for me at that stage. So I spent a lot of time with Francis, and the long story short, I did a lot of one-on-one work with him, and he ended up having 3 wishes, which was he wanted a surfboard, he wanted a pair of runners, and he wanted to take one breath without pain. And part of the motivational work that I was doing was teaching people how to do a very basic meditation, which was just help with the visualisation, the goal setting, and the affirmations, as I said before. So I made a couple of calls and organised a phone call, organised the surfboard and runners, because I still had no money from the massive financial loss. But I spoke with his nurse and his mum and talked him through this meditation. It took about 45 minutes or so. And it was on a Friday afternoon. I remember it just like it was yesterday. And after that 45 minutes, he actually took 3 deep breaths without any pain at all. And even his nurse said, I don't know how this happened, but he was happy, he had a big smile on his face, and it was very emotional for us all. Sadly, a couple of days after, Francis passed, and I got a phone call from his mum, and I went around and sat with her for about 2 hours, and we just chatted. And she said that he understood everything, and everyone had done everything they could for him, but the thing that he wanted the most was that breath, so he could feel like a normal kid just one more time. And she said, you gave him that breath. And the second she said that to me, I thought, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. So from Francis, I was quite motivated, and I've got his photo in my office. I think about it every day, and I believe he's right here. And so he inspired me to try and help other people. So I started doing more motivational workshops. I did some DJing work. I did drug and alcohol-free concerts for kids. Whatever it took to try and help as many people as possible. And ended up working with, it was only a small group of kids down at Geelong. And there were 6 families actually. And one boy in particular, his name was Michael. He was wheelchair bound, and his big dream was to fly. So I organised a flight in a stunt plane for him. So when he got out of the plane, he was like, his face just lit up, and he said, this is the best day of my life, I can't believe it. I thought it was so easy to organise. It made such a difference in his life. But also organised a phone call from Jimmy Barnes to wish him a happy birthday. And that was coming up in a few weeks' time. So Michael had been transferred from Geelong up to the Children's Hospital, and that's where I had the absolute pleasure of meeting Anna Darris, who was in the PR department. So she took me up to see Michael. The phone call came through, and he spent about 15 minutes on the phone. So it wasn't just a happy birthday. That's my impression of Jimmy Barnes. It wasn't just a happy birthday. It was a 15-minute conversation. Michael hung up, and he said, this is the best day of my life. I can't believe it. And he was only 16 at the time. And I thought it was so easy, to organise. I got so much out of it, seeing someone that was happy. But from Michael's room, Anna took me for a tour around the Children's Hospital, and she told me about all the kids that were going through the system. And I was aware of a lot of charities that were out there. I wasn't sure how many charities there were, though. And I was floored to know that it worked out. It was about 80% of the kids that were in the hospital system, this is back in 1998, about 80% of those kids were falling through the gaps, and they weren't eligible for support from a lot of these larger organisations that were well-funded, well-established. And for whatever reason, it might be a rare illness, it might be a burns, accident, sometimes on the wrong ward. Whatever it was, I didn't understand how somebody could basically judge a child, say, well, you're worthy, but you're not. So at that instance, from having a milestone that Francis had set for me, I thought, I've got to do something about this. I can't stand here and see kids go through this without any support. So the concept was to set up a charity that would encourage other charities to open their doors a little bit and try and help more kids. And really, there shouldn't have been a need for another charity. It still made no sense to me. But unfortunately, that wasn't the case. What was happening, a lot of these bigger organisations were actually referring kids to us because we had a system in place and services so simple that the other charities couldn't actually fulfil them in the same time as we did. And we had to keep it very simple, fast and effective. And that was the idea, to be all-inclusive and help as many kids as possible, but not put kids on waiting lists and not judge them or have some sort of criteria for these kids to receive the support. So we set up 2 main areas. Oh, I'm so sorry, I've gone over time. 2 main services, which is our rapid TLC service, which healthcare professionals identify a need of a child, refer them to us, and then we fulfil that request within 24 to 48 hours. There's no waiting list, and there's absolutely no criteria for those kids to receive support. And the other program we've developed, which was back in 2003, was a distraction box program. Now, the box has been, it's filled with specifically chosen toys and items that are used during examinations and procedures for kids. So when they're having any sort of procedure at all, the box can be used to reduce the stress, the fear, the anxiety, the pain, and also help reduce the pain relievers that are being used for these kids. It's proven to reduce the treatment time for these kids. And I'm very proud to say that we get a lot of research done about the boxes on a daily basis from the hospitals that are using it. And it's currently being used almost 800,000 times every year for kids going through procedures and examinations in the hospital system. It's amazing to be able to provide that sort of support, but it hasn't been easy at all. And I'm sorry, how am I going for time? Is it?
Keep going.
it hasn't been easy at all. When I set the organisation up, it was very hard to convince people to donate to a charity that was helping any kid, because people didn't understand, because they didn't have an illness they knew, why were they giving that support? And it was, but we kept going, because basically these kids needed the support. So we kept going, and we put everything we had, physically, mentally, into the organisation, and we got down to a stage where we had $93 left, and that was it. That was my finances, it was my partners and the organisation. That was all we had left, and we called a favour from Neil Mitchell, 3AW presenter, and he ran an appeal for us that raised $150,000 in 3.5 hours, which literally saved the organisation's life. And the only reason why I can stand up today and why I can still talk about TLC for kids is because of that moment where the general public got behind an idea and they started supporting what we did, and they're still supporting what we're doing now. I suppose from that persistence, standing up and wanting to make a difference, I'll just give you a quick snapshot of where we are today. We're servicing over 405 hospitals around the country. We've been able to deliver over 6,000 rapid TLC requests for kids going through extremely difficult times. We have over 1,700 distraction boxes in use every day. We've been able to raise over $10.5 million since 1998, and we are currently reaching more children than any other charity in the country. And even sharing those stats, it still blows me away that this was for a charity that didn't exist 16 years ago, and it really shouldn't exist today, but there's still a need for these kids that are going through and falling through the gaps. As Peter mentioned before, I am very proud to be the local hero, Australia's Local Hero, as part of the Australian of the Year Awards. And the only reason why I mention that, it's been a terrific platform for me to be able to share, I suppose, stories about the non-profit sector and the community, and encourage people to get behind some sort of community project that's in their backyard, or it might be a charity that they know. But it's also been one of the biggest milestones in my life that I've got that recognition for the work we've been doing, and 23 years of service for sick children. But why I'm telling you this is because I really encourage you all to find your own cause to smile. Think about the skill set, think about your networks, what you could provide a charity or offer a charity. But do your research, obviously find an organisation that I suppose makes your heart sing, because it's very important to be involved with something that you become passionate about and you want to be involved. Don't have that feeling of needing to be involved. It's very important, and I'm extremely lucky that I have found my cause to smile. That cause to smile has helped over 4 million kids and counting. But I certainly do hope you all find your cause to smile too. So that's all I've got to say about TLC for kids. Obviously, if you'd like to know more information about what we're doing, the website's there. But before I do officially open EMCORE to 2014, I'd like to make a very short presentation to Dr Peter Kas for an extremely generous contribution and donation we've received because of the conference today. In fact, it's a $10,000 donation that we've received, which is helping. We spend an average about $500 per child per request. So just from me standing here today and you people sitting there today and attending, we've been able to help over 20 families that are going through some extremely difficult times, and you've truly made a difference in their life. So Peter. So on that note, I would like to officially, there's the timing, thank you, officially declare EMCORE 2014 open. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tim. I think it's really important to have this talk, because we get carried away with how important we all are. And I always have this saying that says, the way to start living is to start giving. And I think it's very important to realise why we do what we do. Thank you, Tim. All right.